Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. It seems that Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr. is in danger of actually happening, and I don't know that we often hear the phrase "boxing gets a black eye," you know, um, and very often a lot of things that do kind of give boxing a black eye are avoidable, and some of the things that are very bad in boxing slide under the radar. Now, this is, as far as the casuals, the masses, the mainstream are concerned, this is going to be one of them because most people say, yeah, Ben versus Eubank, the next generation, let's have it. I cannot think of a more appalling matchup except maybe Eubank versus Kell Brook, which he was also chasing. I have to ask, what is Chris Eubank Jr.'s career all about? Because it certainly isn't about building any kind of legacy. He's making money, of course. He's made money in the past. He's been with Al Heyman, hasn't he, for a while. They always get well paid. He's been with Sky. He's with Sky. Was he with Sky at the moment? Yeah. And he's been, with Eddie Hearn for the odd fight here and there. But in terms of a legacy, I mean, what is he, 32 now, Eubank Jr.? What are you doing? And the kid's got some ability. I don't think he's the most talented fighter in the world, but he's got ability, and he seems to live the life, and he seems to stay in shape. And from the moment he turned down, or perhaps his father turned down the Gennady Golovkin fight all those years ago, what has he actually done? This is a guy who was a super middleweight, and he's now back at middleweight. So he's recently beat up Liam Williams, who was coming off a loss to Andrade. He beat Kobarov, whose body was basically wrecked. I mean, the guy, I don't know whether he's retired yet, but he probably needs to because he gets so many physical injuries. That was an injury victory. His two defeats are probably to the two best fighters he's faced, which is Saunders and George Groves. One's retired, the other might as well be retired. But you would think at this stage of his career, in his early 30s, having never won a world title, what is recognised as a world title, he held the WBO title, which at the time him and his father were saying, was a real world title. No one really recognises it, despite their rankings being actually quite good. No one recognises the IBO as a proper world title. And he held one of those secondary WBA things. But what is he doing with his career? You'd think now he'd be thinking, okay, I've got limited time left. I'm going to really make a go for it. I'm going to win a world title. I'm going to make some serious money, unifications. No. What I'll do instead is I'll do a catchweight contest with a welterweight who could probably still make super lightweight. Why? Just because it's a big name and I'll make some money out of it. To me, it's exasperating when you see that someone who's had all those opportunities, comes from a privileged background, has clearly lived the life, he's clearly a guy of ability, instead decides to go down that kind of, almost tempted to say he's like a prostitute, isn't he really? He's like a whore, I'm just going to go where all the money is. Some people will say, well, you can't blame him. It's a short career. You got to make a lot of money. But Eubank's not short of a few bob. This is not a journeyman. This is not a guy who's not connected. This is not a guy who comes from an obscure family. And having made millions and, walking around wearing flash gear and driving a McLaren and everything, you would think at this point, or I would think, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm just plain naive, but I would think he's going to go for it. He's going to say, okay, made me money. Now I'm going to try and build a bit of a legacy so that people remember me as my own man and not just Chris Eubank's son. Now, the flip side of that is Conor Benn, who to me seems to be a good example of a guy who needs to be protected from himself. Because this kid will fight anyone. I believe him when he says that. But as I just mentioned, he's not a big welterweight. He's probably at a push if he ate right, lived right, which he seems to. He might be able to get down to super lightweight. He's certainly a small welterweight anyway, very small welterweight. And he wants to fight a guy who was once campaigning or campaigned for several years at super middleweight and is now a middleweight, which is 2 divisions up. Ben has never fought at super welterweight, never mind middleweight. I only see one possible outcome for this fight, and that is that Ben gets smashed to bits, gamely, bravely, gives it a go, and probably goes out early, 4 rounds, 5 rounds maybe before that. But I have to ask, and it's a rhetorical question because I kind of know the answer. I've just answered the question. It's all about money, but why is this fight happening? Why do people want to see this fight who know the remotest thing about boxing? When they get in the ring, look at the size difference between them. If it happens, hopefully it won't happen, but if it does, look at it. I don't get it. I do get it, but I don't like it, basically. I think it's a stupid fight. I think if you care about boxing and does anyone really want to see this, genuinely? Anyone who knows anything about boxing, do they really want to see this? Anyway, I thought I'd just give my 2 cents on that because I think it's just a terrible, terrible fight, but I hate this sort of stuff. It's like McGregor against Mayweather. What a farce that was. Anyone who knew anything about boxing knew that McGregor didn't have a cat in hell's chance. And yet it made hundreds of millions of pounds. People can talk their way into fights, and regardless of ability, regardless of where they're at, regardless of anything. If you've got a fat mouth and you talk a lot of trash, you get fights that are not legitimate. It's a shame. But anyway, it'll carry on. Okay. I wonder what the board are thinking of this fight. I wonder if they would intervene. Probably not. Not where there's money involved, eh? You know what I mean? All right. Well, yeah, leave your comments below if you've got any. Yeah, thanks for watching the video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'd appreciate that. Build the channel up and all that. Hit the like button if you like the video. Thank you for your time. We will speak again.